Interstate 35, splitting the country right down the middle, running from border to border, well, almost, touching the sprawling DFW Metroplex, the plains of Kansas, and the icy lakes of Minnesota. It is the original NAFTA Superhighway. And on this video, we're going to take a look at this major interstate and what it is like to travel on it. Now, if you're like me and you're over here watching this channel, then you probably already know all about Interstate 35 just from looking at and studying the maps over time. But what is it like to actually drive it? Don't worry, I've got you covered. I drove Interstate 35 so that you don't have to, from Texas all the way to Minnesota. So if you're all about history, geography, infrastructure, roads, maps, and everything in between, you are in the right place. So go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe as we talk about Interstate 35. We'll start out at the southern terminus in the Texas city of Laredo. I-35 technically doesn't touch the border as it officially begins at a grade intersection with Victoria Street, while I-35 business continues south to Customs. As the interstate begins, you'll see San Antonio, Houston, and Carrizo Springs listed as control cities on a gigantic overhead sign. And one of these cities is not like the others. We'll immediately get 3 lanes on each side, and it stays that way all the way through Laredo. At the northern edges of the city, there's a construction area around the interchange with the new I-69 West and Loop 20. No control cities are listed for now. Outside of the Laredo area, things get pretty rural and we drop down to 4 lanes. But this is Texas, so of course you have those frontage roads on both sides of the freeway, almost continuous between Laredo and San Antonio. In San Antonio, we cross the I-410 Beltway and within a few miles finally pick up that 3rd lane again. Right before downtown, we reach a massive interchange with I-10 and US 90, and I-10 joins I-35 on the downtown approach, while US 90 continues west. In downtown, you'll find a split that can be confusing to some drivers. I-35 is signed for the lower level while I-10 traffic is directed to the upper level. However, you can actually take either one and you'll still be on I-35. At the split with I-10, you'll get another set of signs showing I-35 lower level and I-37 for the upper level. But again, you can take either one. I prefer to stay on the upper level as the views are better. Continuing north, we come to I-410 again, and this time I-410 decides to join us for a bit through northeastern San Antonio. And after Interstate 410 exits, I-35 is on to Austin. Now this stretch between Austin and San Antonio is booming. You have the city of New Braunfels, known for its German heritage, the college town of San Marcos, and the small town turned booming suburb of Kyle, Texas. This area is among the fastest growing in the state and the country as a whole. And if Texas isn't already working to upgrade I-35 here, then it's likely going to be needed soon. Approaching Austin, the roadway gets quite busy. Get ready for the congestion. You're about to experience some of the worst that Texas has to offer. And there's no escaping it unless you come through on a Sunday or late at night. Or you could take Texas 45 to the Texas 130 bypass for a fee. It gets particularly bad as you approach the Colorado River near downtown. However, it's quite nice to admire the fast-growing Austin skyline. After a bit, a split opens up with that double decking that we talked about earlier in the video. I find the traffic lightens up a little in this section. However, it is actually slated for removal and reconstruction as Texas finally prepares to improve the highway in the city. Ironically, as Austin prepares to get rid of their double decking of I-35, San Antonio is getting ready to build a double decking of I-35 in the northeastern part of that city. In Round Rock, we drop back down to 3 lanes, and after passing Georgetown, you are finally out of the Austin area. Like most suburbs surrounding Austin, all of these towns are booming in population growth. And of course, you'll pass some of those signature Texas interchange stacks as you leave the area. Next up there is Temple. In this area, you have the partially built interchange with I-14, where there are ramps to get from I-35 to I-14, but drivers wanting to get onto I-35 southbound from I-14 need to utilize frontage roads for now. In Temple, we upgrade to 4 lanes again to handle the increased traffic levels in that area, and then it's on to Waco. In Waco, we also open back up to 4 lanes and we pick up US 77, the highway that I-35 mostly replaced in the state. You won't see much signage for it, however. And finally, after Waco, our next major area is the Big Dog, the largest on the entire route, the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth. In Hill County, it splits up into I-35 East for Dallas and I-35 West for Fort Worth. We'll start with I-35 East. Now, this area is massive, population over 8 million, and covering an area of over 8,600 square miles. You'll start to feel the development as you reach Waxahachie. There's an interchange with US 287 for a second chance at going to Fort Worth. And after passing through the South Dallas suburban towns and I-20, US 87 joins the party and the roadway becomes one of the largest in the country. You're going to get some stunning views of the Dallas skyline as you approach. And there is no direct interchange with I-45, but it can be accessed through I-30. This area is typically where you'll experience the most congestion in Dallas, as you have a ton of weaving from the convergence of all these freeways around downtown. However, you will see some of the most impressive stacks in Texas. You can tell that this roadway has been recently rebuilt in the Dallas area. This section is known as the Stemmons Freeway and stays quite busy as you pass the medical center area. Eventually, you'll reach a large interchange with I-635. This interchange accommodates the main lines of Interstate 35 and Interstate 635, along with express lanes and frontage roads for each interstate. It's one of the more complex interchanges on the whole system. And afterwards, we drop down to 3 lanes on each side as we exit Dallas into the suburb of Farmers Branch. Then, once you get up to Denton, you finally approach the rejoining of I-35 West. There's a big yellow sign warning of congestion, so you already know what time it is in this area. The backup here is caused by people entering the roadway from I-35 West and then the interchange with US 380 immediately afterwards. Now, before we head north into Oklahoma, let's take a look at I-35 West. On I-35 West, we're rolling with 2 lanes on each side until we enter Tarrant County, the home of Fort Worth, at which point we get that 3rd lane on each side along with some Texas frontage roads on each side. Continuing north after a large interchange with I-20, things widen up even more. This is Texas after all, so you know they're not leaving an urban freeway at a paltry 6 lanes. So heading towards downtown, we're rocking with 8 lanes and frontage roads. The Fort Worth skyline becomes visible in the approach to I-30. You'll notice that Interstate 20 and Interstate 30 have the same control cities here, which are Dallas and Abilene. Look at those high stacks, only in Texas. In this area, things can get backed up as we have multiple back-to-back interchanges. Texas 121 will take you towards the airport, while US 287 takes you towards southeastern Fort Worth. But there is an express lane if you want to pay to get through here a little quicker. US 287 comes along for the ride through northern Fort Worth, and you'll notice that we surprisingly drop down to 4 lanes in this well-developed area. This is the part of Fort Worth where you'll find the most congestion, as it has a configuration of just 2 general purpose lanes and 2 express lanes, which is a poor design choice. The more efficient configuration is 3 general purpose lanes before beginning to add the express lanes. Texas made this mistake with the nearby Interstate 820 as well, and it is regularly congested throughout the day. And after another impressive stack interchange with the I-820 roadway, I-35W was under construction when I filmed this video, but I believe this was to extend the express lanes further north, further continuing that poor design choice. In Fort Worth, I'd say this is the one area you'll want to pay for the express lanes. But then again, that's likely what Texas was aiming for when they designed it like this. US 287 departs for Wichita Falls and Amarillo, and we continue north to Denton to reunite with I-35 East. And things start to look surprisingly rural on this stretch. But don't be surprised if the strong demand for housing in the metro area changes this in the coming decade. After leaving Denton and the DFW Metroplex, we're down to a rural 2-lane roadway headed into Oklahoma. And unlike US 75 on the Dallas side, I-35 will likely be rural for years to come, as most of the explosive growth in the northern suburbs is occurring on that side of the metro. And next up, welcome to Oklahoma. Funny thing about Oklahoma, I had a conversation recently where I was asked what's the most boring state to drive through, and I used to say it was Indiana. But upon the suggestion of Oklahoma being the most boring, I had to actually change my opinion and say yes, Oklahoma is the most boring state in America to drive through. Now, Oklahoma is a state where many of the freeways are tolled, but I-35 is an exception. Being built with taxpayer funds, it is free to drive on I-35 through the entirety of the state. The march to Oklahoma City is largely uneventful, but of note is the section around the Arbuckle Mountains, where I-35 replaced the dangerous old US 77 route. But that route is still open and in place if you want to check out the scenery. Once we get to Norman, we'll start to see the development and the roadway opens up to 3 lanes on each side. I-35 is well maintained in the OKC area. Right outside of downtown, we hit a major interchange with I-40, where I-235 continues north to Edmond, while I-35 joins I-40 for a short concurrency before also heading north a little to the east. You can't see the skyline from here, but if you want to get into downtown, you'll take I-40 westbound. On the stretch after leaving I-40, the third lane departs with US 62, and then we're down to 2. It starts looking rural even though we are still in Oklahoma City's municipal boundaries. Once I-44 joins, you'll see these 3 marks in the roadway pavement. These are called dowel bar retrofits, and they are used to reinforce cracks in concrete pavement. On the western side of the roadway, you can see roller coasters from the Frontier City theme park. Looks like a cool place to take the kids. And then we'll see signage for I-44 east to Tulsa and the Kilpatrick Turnpike, which forms a western loop around Oklahoma City. We drop back to 2 lanes for the journey to Wichita, and US 77 also joins. Unlike Texas, Oklahoma actually gives the US routes some respect and shows signage along with I-35 along the route. Like other parts of I-35 in Oklahoma, it is a smooth ride up here. And also, like the rest of the route, it's quite flat and boring. But thankfully, the speed limit is 75. US 77 leaves us on a left exit to Guthrie, and then it is on to Kansas. The first sign that you've entered Kansas is a greeting welcoming you to the Kansas Turnpike. Yep, I-35 in Kansas is mostly tolled. Shortly afterwards, you get the official Welcome to Kansas sign. Now, the tolls don't begin immediately, as federal regulations require giving drivers the opportunity to choose a toll-free option. So your option here at the exit for US 166, you had the opportunity to exit and utilize US 81 rather than I-35 to get to Wichita. Continuing north, you don't really start noticing any development until you're right there in Wichita. And upon entering the city limits, there's an immediate interchange with I-135 that gives access to downtown and Salina, while I-35 bypasses the main part of the city to the southeast. This is also where you'll first see Kansas City listed as the control city. The last exit in the Wichita area is with Kansas 96, a freeway that loops around the northeastern part of the city. One cool thing about Kansas is the sunflower design of the state route signs, one of the more unique designs in the country. Now, I didn't personally drive this section between Wichita and Kansas City, as I took the free I-135 to I-70 route instead. Also, because on that route, you get to see some other Kansas cities such as Abilene, Topeka, Manhattan, and Lawrence. While with I-35, you only get to see Emporia. But I'll go back and check that out one day. On the I-35 path, there is a split in Emporia where you can take I-335 to Topeka. And once you get to the Kansas City area, the development starts as far south as Gardner. The roadway opens up to 3 lanes on each side in Olate and again to 4 lanes in Lenexa. The popular suburb of Overland Park is also nearby. And if you have the time, you should definitely stop in and get some barbecue. Q35 is quite amazing in Kansas City. Traffic in Kansas City is relatively smooth compared to most major metro areas. I spent around 2 weeks here and never had much issue with I-35 in the area. In fact, if you're looking for a larger area with smooth flowing traffic, then Kansas City is one of the best in the country. After the interchange with Interstate 635, you enter the Little Kansas City, which is Kansas City, Kansas. And we do drop a lane in this area and head into Missouri with 3 lanes. And then it's welcome to the big Kansas City, Missouri, often abbreviated as KCMO. The skyline is immediately visible as you enter the city. And like many cities, Kansas City also has a Broadway, which you'll see an exit for here. In this little ring of freeways around downtown Kansas City, I-35 takes the northwestern path, and there's an interchange with I-670, and then I-35 joins I-70 north of downtown next to the river. Then on the northeastern corner of the loop, we meet Interstate 29. I-35 will go north with I-29, while I-70 will head southeast with I-29. This bridge here is known as the Christopher Bond Pylon Bridge, carrying traffic over the Missouri River. The area around this bridge can sometimes be one of the rare bottlenecks for congestion in the Kansas City area. In the suburbs, once I-29 and US 71 depart for the airport in St. Joseph, we are on our way to good old Iowa. We do meet the I-435 Beltway once again, and we also see US 69, which has been playing a game of tag with I-35 all through the Kansas City area. It finally joins us for a brief journey through the last of the northern suburbs before departing to the east. And the rest of the trip through Missouri is pretty uneventful, but you do have small towns like Bethany and Cameron, which provide your typical amenities like fast food, hotels, and gas stations. And then we enter Iowa, the Hawkeye State. It's a standard 4-lane rural freeway in most of this state, as the only city of significance on the route here is the capital of Des Moines. The first signs that you're in the Des Moines area is the interchange with Iowa 5, which is a freeway that runs along the southern part of the city. After this interchange, the roadway surprisingly opens up to a whopping 4 lanes on each side. At the interchange with I-80, you can choose to go east on I-235 to get to downtown Des Moines, while I-35 and I-80 go northwest together around the city. On the northeastern side of the city, we reconnect with Interstate 235, and I-80 continues east towards Iowa City, while I-35 goes north en route to the Twin Cities. You'll actually see signage for Minneapolis in Des Moines. Between Des Moines and the Minnesota state line, you're not going to see much, just the standard Iowa cornfields. But you're never too far from amenities, as there are a few small little towns along this route. And now, our final state on I-35 is Minnesota. Rumor has it that the people are nice here. The first notable thing here is the junction with the cross-country Interstate 90, the longest interstate in the country. It crosses I-35 near the city of Albert Lea. You can use I-90 to access Sioux Falls to the west or visit Mayo Clinic in Rochester to the east. As you continue north past small towns like Owatonna and Faribault, you start to notice development for the Twin Cities as far south as Lakeville. You also start to notice that there are a lot of difficult to pronounce places in Minnesota. The roadway opens up to 3 lanes out here. And in Minnesota, we have yet another I-35 split, with I-35 West this time going to the larger city in Minneapolis, while I-35 East goes to the smaller St. Paul, which is also the state capital. In Bloomington, you get an express lane added, and eventually one of the general purpose lanes drops. However, the express lanes in Minnesota are typically free to use during off-peak hours, meaning that Minnesota likely uses the express lanes to help traffic flow, while places like Texas uses express lanes to make money. The interchange with the I-495 Beltway gives access to the massive Mall of America to the east, the largest mall in the country. North of here, you get this interesting weaving situation with Minnesota 62, where it and I-35 never actually share the same roadway, but instead I-35 runs between the Minnesota 2 roadway. After that, I-35 West reorients to the north and heads towards downtown Minneapolis. The roadway here opens up to 4 general purpose lanes on each side with an express lane. Approaching downtown, you are greeted by one of the more spectacular skyline views from an interstate as you admire downtown Minneapolis. At this interchange with I-94, Interstate 35 traffic exits to the east, and you'll often see these lanes backed up, while those wanting to go into downtown can just continue straight. Like the section with Minnesota 62, I-35 and I-94 technically don't share the same roadway here. In this area is a highly complex system of ramps to transfer traffic between I-35 West and I-94. And after that, you cross the mighty Mississippi River over this bridge. If you recall, this was where the old bridge collapsed into the river back in 2007. This new replacement is one of the most well-built you'll find in the country, so we shouldn't have to worry about that happening again. We keep the 4 lanes until exit 20. Where it then drops to 3. The 3rd lane drops in Blaine, and you'll start seeing signage for Duluth. The interchange where we rejoin I-35 East is notable in that there are no ramps to access I-35 East southbound, nor ramps to access I-35 West southbound from I-35 East northbound. Now taking a look at I-35 East, we open up to 3 lanes in Eagan. At the interchange with I-494, you have a design that features several of those outdated cloverleaf ramps that Minnesota is known for. Be careful with merging in this metro area. The bridge over the Mississippi on the St. Paul side is pretty boring, so nothing to see there. Next to downtown, there is a short concurrency with I-94, and in St. Paul, I-35 actually does share the roadway with Interstate 94, while 11th and 12th Streets function as frontage roads for this section. Heading north out of St. Paul, we are back to 3 lanes along with an express lane. And at Minnesota 36, we have yet another cloverleaf interchange. Oh boy. And then we have another short concurrency, this time with Interstate 694, which functions as the northern half of the beltway around the Twin Cities. And after a bit of suburbia, we reconnect with Interstate 35 West. Now it's time for Duluth. Now, when I was in Minnesota, I actually drove this section to Duluth back and forth a couple of times. Not much to see on the way, but it can get pretty busy in the warmer months with people visiting the North Shore. In Duluth, consider yourself lucky if you made it here and the weather isn't dreary and cloudy. Things remain at 2 lanes, and there was a lot of construction when I came through and filmed out here. But on sunny days, the scenery looks spectacular. One of the best on the interstate system for a small city. There are a series of tunnels here that were part of the final extension of the route that we talked about earlier. Exit 259 is where you'll continue on to the North Shore on Minnesota 61, which actually used to be US 61 until I-35 replaced that route in this area. Otherwise, our I-35 journey ends here at this intersection. Now, if you want to continue north, there are some pretty cool spots to check out on the North Shore, but I don't see any reason for Interstate 35 to continue past Duluth. Well, all right then, there it is, Interstate 35. What a highway. Now, if you've ever been on I-35, let me know what your experience is with it down there in the comments. And if you live along I-35, then how important is it to your daily life? Do you love it or do you hate it? And where do you think it ranks in overall importance in America? Is it up there with I-95 or I-90? Or is it even higher? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.